There's been a growing trend over the past 2 years of I have no friends videos popping up on YouTube, with many of these videos getting millions of views.
I'm 21 years old and I have no friends.
Still technically don't have any, friends.
I have no friends now.
And honestly, I don't think I've ever had friends.
I've always said for years now that I don't have friends.
Since 2013, I've probably hung out with one person other than my brother and family members.
And it's getting harder as I get older.
Like, when you get to this age, you just don't have friends anymore.
I'm just so lonely all the time.
The fact that people are speaking out about this and breaking the stigma is amazing, but what worries me is that in most, if not all of these videos and comment sections, there's a pattern of people blaming themselves for their loneliness and seeing it as a personal failing.
It's my fault that I'm this lazy. I just don't know what's wrong with me.
Maybe I just wasn't letting anybody in.
Maybe I'm too picky. I know it's like dating. Maybe I'm doing something wrong.
I know that I truly have like a mental issue. Like I have something's wrong.
Like, because I just had such low self-esteem.
I can't be mad at other people. I can't be mad at the world. I'm mad at myself.
It could definitely be the case that some of these things are contributing factors to people's loneliness. But what I want to talk about in this video is that far from being an individual failing, loneliness is a predictable, inevitable outcome of capitalism. Loneliness is capitalism's collateral damage. So, how did we get into this mess and how can we get out? The precarity of capitalism as an economic system, combined with its blind hunger for profitability, means that many of us are burnt out from overwork, longer commute times, desperately scrambling to make ends meet, and trying to fit basic needs like cooking, exercise, life admin, sleep into the remaining hours, that we have less time, energy, and bandwidth for relationships. Social time, because it's not profitable or productive in capitalist logic, always seems to be at the bottom of our to-do lists. In fact, we glamorize and celebrate workaholics who prioritize productivity over friendships. At work, many of us are lonelier than ever before, eating alone in work cubicles, staring at screens all day, or working from home. Because of the rising gap between income and cost of living, many of us are forced to take on gig work or side hustles, meaning spending time with friends is weighed up against the prospect of another job. And with such little paid holiday time, we often have to forego family or friend reunions. Even when we do hang out with people, it's hard to be truly present with them because of the stresses of work and the expectation to still be checking our emails outside of work hours is constantly weighing on us. And the endless rat race means that we're often so fast-paced and self-absorbed that we don't have time for little interactions like a friendly chat to the postman or smiling at a stranger in the street. These daily interactions are also becoming fewer and fewer as capitalism's desire for efficiency, productivity, and cutting costs has led to more and more automation and contact-free living. So, long story short, capitalism's insatiable drive for endless profits is leaving us disconnected, alienated, friendless, and lonely. I think loneliness isn't just about the quality and quantity of our relationships. I also think it's about how we feel in society. We grew up being told we could have and be and do anything if only we tried hard enough. But the reality of life under late-stage capitalism is that we have mountains of debt, cost of living is so high that we have no savings, and we can't even afford a house. And with austerity measures and the slashing of social services, we don't have communities, a union, or a safety net to turn to for help. It's lonely to feel like such a loser in society, and it's lonely to feel uncared for, powerless, and invisible in this way. To make matters even worse, we're given such a prescribed, homogenized idea of how we are supposed to live our lives. School, 9 to 5 jobs for the rest of our lives, marriage, monogamy, nuclear family, kids. And because capitalism is based off of so many superficialities, success, status, materialism, and requires us to constantly sell and market ourselves, it can be hard to find anyone to talk about anything of substance with. What I'm trying to say is that it can be so lonely to feel like an outsider in society, that the social script works for everyone else but ourselves. And having that feeling that no one really understands you is an incredibly isolating experience. But at the same time, if you try to break the mold of what you're supposed to do with your life, or you don't want to follow the normal conversational script, you risk social ostracization. I, for example, live my life moving around every few months. In exchange for labor, I get free accommodation. I earn less than €1,000 per month. I like to spend most of my time on creativity. I like to talk about climate change, revolution, existential topics. I feel my soul is happy, but not fitting the normal social script has definitely left me feeling lonely and rejected by society. Another cause of our loneliness is the way in which, over time, we internalize capitalist values that impacts how we relate to ourselves and others. Some people seem to have internalized a capitalist scarcity mentality where they want to hoard their love as much as possible, not expend too much, and instead deplete and take love from others. Some people seem to view their relationships transactionally through cost-benefit calculations. What can they do for me? Am I gaining more than this is costing me? Relationships become something to invest in, and if you don't get a return on your investment, you get rid of them. On top of that, our dog-eat-dog, me, individualistic, competitive, capitalist culture means that qualities such as kindness, caring, solidarity are not only undervalued but seen as irrelevant human traits. Instead, people have distrustful rivalry with others, competing rather than collaborating, taking rather than giving, hustling rather than helping. So maybe for many of us, our loneliness is less about our external circumstances and more about how this capitalist way of thinking has invaded our psyches, alienating us from other people, whether we realize it or not. I also think an under-discussed reason why we are so lonely is because of how profoundly alienated we are from nature. For most of human history, we lived intimately connected to nature. We could read the winds, the clouds, and the changes in the currents of rivers and seas. We could hear plants speak to us and tell us their healing properties. But capitalism required disconnecting us from nature to justify its exploitation and commodification, and we also physically have less access to land as more and more nature is privatized or plundered for profit. On top of that, I recently found out that many outdoor spaces are actually deliberately designed to make them as inaccessible for socializing as possible. Benches are made to be uncomfortable, streetlights too bright, sprinkler systems deliberately to keep people from sitting on the grass. The point is to funnel people into indoor spaces where we spend money in order to socialize. I think humanity has an innate longing to be connected to nature. When this connection is severed by our capitalist system, it can lead to a profound and ever-present ache of loneliness within us. So all in all, I think loneliness is an inevitable outcome of the brutality of capitalism. The problem is, it's so hard to tackle loneliness because the solutions offered to make us less lonely often leave us feeling lonelier than ever. So, when talking about the solutions to loneliness that actually leave us feeling lonelier than ever, I think dating apps is a good place to start. And this hits close to home for me because I feel like my main source of loneliness comes from a lack of physical touch. I think I'm lucky to have lots of friends, but because I move around so frequently, I'm rarely in a place where there are friends around me, so I'm always having to make new friends, and it takes a while before you know people enough for them to want to touch you or hug you or have sex with you. So for me, dating apps has been the solution that I've tried in order to give me some of the physical touch and intimacy that I'm craving. But what I found is that casual hookup culture actually leaves me feeling lonelier than ever because I get fleeting moments of intimacy and physical touch that I'm craving, but that just heightens how much I feel the absence of those things when those brief hookup moments are gone. I also find that dating apps force me to market myself to be as desirable as possible to as broad an audience as possible. But because I show such a mutilated version of myself, it inherently leads me to feel like I'm never really being seen or heard. On top of that, the constant self-management required to avoid emotional vulnerability and attachment because everything is supposed to be so casual just leaves me feeling empty inside. I think social media functions in a very similar way. It's supposed to help our loneliness by getting us more connected to more and more people and helping us find our tribes. But often it makes us feel lonelier than ever before because every moment spent on it is less time spent connecting to the people around us. These platforms profit off of outrage, making us perceive each other as meaner and crueler, which further isolates us from other people. And then there's the fact that everyone presents a curated image of their lives, making it seem like everyone else is doing better than us. And in turn, the more carefully we curate our own social media feeds, the more we risk feeling like no one really likes or knows the real person behind the profile. And often the effect of getting part of what we want through convenient means is that we stop engaging in valuable activities altogether in favor of more convenient ones. I, for example, have developed such strong parasocial relationships with YouTubers that I often spend my weekends and evenings with them, even though I know I would probably have a better time had I gone to that friend reunion I was invited to. Or because I know that I can get an amazing orgasm from my vibrating sex toy, I prefer to stay in and use that as opposed to going out on a date, even though I know on some level that if I stuck with the tedious process of dating, that would probably, in the long run, be infinitely more satisfying. And when parasocial relationships and my sex toy don't really fulfill my need for connection and intimacy, instead of saying to myself, okay, I'm doing something wrong, this is not getting to the root of the problem, I'm only getting a caricature of the thing that I really need, I instead double down on these activities. I develop more and more parasocial relationships. I buy bigger, better sex toys. And to make matters even worse, because we're so used to getting convenient versions of what we want, it can make the inconveniences of human beings hard to tolerate. It can be easy to talk to someone and feel a strong urge to put them on 2 times speed or skip forward 5 minutes into the conversation when it gets more interesting because we're so used to doing this with our parasocial relationships. And intimacy with a human being becomes infinitely more dissatisfying when my vibrating sex toy can give me more reliable, frequent orgasms than a human being ever could. So, what I'm trying to say is that it can be so easy to substitute convenient solutions for real human connection because they require less of us, less time, energy, emotional investment. But in the long run, rather than easing our loneliness, they often leave us feeling lonelier than ever. So, if we genuinely want to confront the loneliness epidemic, these superficial solutions are not going to work. We need to confront the isolating, alienating system in which we have been forced. I think a good place to start would be to ask ourselves on a personal level how capitalism has impacted our ability to form connections, how capitalist mentality has invaded our psyches, and what solutions we currently take to tackle our loneliness, and if these are helping or hindering us. I think it's also important to be part of a social movement, volunteering group, union, community, or political group. Not only does this unite us in solidarity with other people, which can help tackle alienation and isolation, but I also think to get to the root causes of loneliness, we need to organize and agitate for better conditions, more time off work, the reopening of social spaces, more safety nets, and tackling the climate crisis so we aren't all so disconnected from nature. If we don't tackle the toxicity of capitalism soon, I foresee a dystopian future where antibiotic resistance and ever more diseases make social contact more dangerous to our health. Climate catastrophe will make air pollution worse, making it harder to leave the house. More tech innovations will give us a more automated, contactless existence. All combined, it may become the norm for us to be totally isolated, living entirely out of chairs, staring at screens, being catered to by an extensive fleet of robots, substituting sex dolls and artificial intelligence for real human relationships. Thank you for watching. This video was brought to you by my patrons who make this channel possible. And actually, this topic was also inspired by the Patreon discussion group where every 2 weeks we come together to talk about a topic, and we talked about loneliness, which then led me to want to do a video about this. We also discuss things like death, mental health, and giving up on our dreams. So if you want to join the discussions, I've linked my Patreon below. And if you want to help this channel, I'd really appreciate if you could become a patron or leave a one-time donation on PayPal or Ko-fi. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me and get to the end of the video. I appreciate it so much. And please leave me a comment or a like or a share. That also helps a lot.